Separation was not because you sinned. Separation was not because something terrible went wrong. Separation was just another form of the dance of creation itself, perhaps taken to the extremes, for God seeks the limits of what is unlimited. You've been playing a game of hide and seek. Hello friends, in this video I'm going to be going over lesson 4 in the Way of Transformation. And it's the second book of the trilogy, the Christ-Mind trilogy, or the Way of Mastery. And these books are by Jayem, or JON MARC HAMMER, and they are channelings of Jesus, or Jeshua ben Joseph. These are amazing books and they reestablish Jesus' teachings, and they provide a pathway to enlightenment. The overall idea in lesson 4 is the creation of separation, or the creation of the ego. And it begins by saying, you are God, we are God, all is God, and that first level of creation never changes. The pure wholeness of spirit has never changed, and you are still that. And then he goes into a long, detailed description of creation, basically the whole process of the one thing becoming the many. And in one point, he uses an image of pouring milk into a glass, which I think is kind of funny. And then it's splashing up, and then it's a little droplet of milk bouncing on the surface of the milk in the glass. And using that kind of as an image of what happened, of that little droplet is the ego thinking it's separate from milk, but it's still milk, it's still spirit. Then he goes on to say, because spirit is unlimited, it wants to experience everything it can, so it creates this idea of separation just to experience itself as separate, because it truly is unlimited. And why would God or spirit want to do this? For the desire of creation, for the desire of play. He describes it kind of like a dance. It's just for fun. And why? All for the joy of extending creation, that one might be aware of itself in an endless variety of form. And this is where it begins, the delight of creation. And within that description of the process of creation, of the one becoming the many, he describes the creation of fear. As that first thought of separation is dreamt, a new energy is born. That which has been pure joy, that which has been pure freedom, pure safety, now changes form slightly. You could see a drop of milk within the drop of milk seems to separate and take on its own energy. And that we have called fear. Here is born not extension, but contraction, or the experience of contraction, as fear emerges in awareness. And now the river begins to cascade very, very quickly. Out of fear, out of the first inception of the thought, I am alone, I am separate from my Creator. And yet, remember, in reality, it's the Creator perceiving the Creator and creating the perception that God is separate from God. And he says, with that thought, I am alone, I am separate, an explosion occurs. And he says the Big Bang Theory is very close to truth, but it didn't happen physically, it happened first in consciousness, this explosion. And all these separate little points of light think they're separate, but really they're all the same thing. Each one has within it the thought, the recognition, the perception that is of separation. Fear has been birthed. I am alone. I am not that point of light over there. I am just myself. And this is the origin of ego consciousness. Because the ego is fear consciousness. It is thinking, I am alone, I am by myself, I am separate from everything else. And here fear has condensed into its final form. There can be no further condensation of the energy which has become fear. For egoic consciousness is fearful consciousness. The ego is fear. And yet it is made of pure power, pure potentiality, unlimited creativity. And rest assured, you all have the experience of knowing just how ceaselessly creative egoic mind can be. So what is egoic consciousness? You all know what it feels to be absolutely certain that you are separate and alone, that you must rely on your own thinking process, and that no one beyond, not just the boundary of your body or skin, but no one beyond your unique, contracted sense of I, has any connection to you whatsoever, and no one cares. I am alone, I am separate. How on earth am I going to make it? I've got to figure my own way. I've got to figure out how this world works. I've got to make it happen for myself. Fear has taken its final form. Now there is a complete forgetting of God, of the one, of spirit, even of soul. The body is the representation of the ego. So it is the egoic mind or consciousness that creates the idea of separation, the perspective of separation and being alone. And he says this whole physical universe is simply the reflection of that fearful thought that you are alone. So everything's reflecting back to that truth that yes, you are alone, you are separate from everything else. The universe is the attempt to create a reflection that convinces you that the first fearful thought of separation is the truth of who you are. You are using, or have unwittingly been using, your physical universe to constantly reflect to you what must be the truth, that you are separate from all creation. This world is nothing but a reflection of that thought, and yet, even here, that one pervades all things. And the realization of yourself as that one is closer to you than your own breath, simply a decision away. Here there is great richness not found in any other dimension, the richness of the dramas of separation, of seeking, seeking, seeking. The very energy of seeking is the egoic energy, for only the ego can seek. Pure spirit can only extend, and there is a huge difference. It is interesting how he describes the ego as the one that's constantly seeking. It's constantly seeking outside of itself for fulfillment through special relationships, through objects. And that spirit never seeks because it is what is. It is everything. So it only seeks to extend itself or express itself or create more of itself. And whenever you feel this restlessness, that's a sure sign that it is the ego in operation, because it's always seeking, it's always wanting more. And that it is the ego that kind of deafens out that constant communication from the creator, from source to you. And the infinite internal stream of communication that occurs throughout creation, unobstructedly, is lost to your awareness. And yet so close are you, it requires only a thought to shift the momentum in a new direction, to rest your head upon the pillow and say, I am not just this body-mind. I am that one pure, unbounded, and undefiled. I am in communication with every rock and every tree and every time frame that has ever been. And he says, yes, this thought will seem insane from this perspective because we're on this side of the fence. We're on the other side of the fence of seeing everything as separate and believing in separation. So from that point of view, it does seem insane. But that is how it is in truth. That is the perspective of spirit. But the end of all seeking occurs when one dares to hold within the mind a different thought. And you have heard it many times through this, my beloved brother, through many of my other channels, through A Course in Miracles. Only love is real. You are not the body. I and my Father are one. I am awake and walk this planet as Christ. I choose love over fear. And those statements, he says, are facts. And that is the truth that is always true. And he says what is crucial in the way of transformation is accepting those truths and choosing anew in every moment. Love over fear. God remembers God. For beloved friends, the way of transformation must bring you, in the end, to the quiet recognition there is only God. Why fear if love is here? And there is only love or fear. Now this was a very small little taste of this lesson. Again, like I mentioned, he goes into a beautiful description of the whole process of creating this physical universe. Highly recommend checking out this lesson and all the other books. And they're available free online at womlibrary.com. Thank you.